Hello, my name's Mike, and I work on a project called Drupal Quickstart. I wanted to do a screencast on how to do debugging with the new version of Quickstart, and here it is. So this is how to do step debugging of Drupal using Quickstart. So what is step debugging? Really briefly, step debugging is watching a program execute one line at a time and being able to see the variables that are happening, being able to see the sequence of events. And this is really helpful in debugging as it lets us see the difference between what we think our programs are doing and what they're actually doing. So here we go. We're going to do this with XDebug and NetBeans. And the first thing we'll do is we'll go out, we'll use the Quickstart Drush commands to create a new site with Drush. Next, we'll go out, create a new project in NetBeans, and we will really, that just tells NetBeans where the files are, where to look for the files. And then the third thing we'll do is we'll go through two quick scenarios of debugging Drupal. So let's do it. This is my Windows XP computer, and here's VirtualBox. And VirtualBox is a program that runs on Windows. It's an open source program. And right here I've already installed Quickstart, and we're just going to restore it from its previously saved state. So if you're unfamiliar with VirtualBox or you haven't used virtual machines before, this is a Windows XP window that's running a Windows XP program, and that Windows XP program, which is this open source VirtualBox program, appears to be a computer, and we can actually install Ubuntu Linux on it. So that's what I've done with Quickstart, and you can see here this is Linux, and I'm just going to tuck this little guy right up in here, and boom, everything's Linux. Okay, so let's do some debugging. So if we open up the terminal, which is just the command line, we can go to the websites folder, and this is where Quickstart keeps all the Quickstart websites. We can see there's two websites here already: example.dev, which is a Drupal 7 site, and example6.dev, which is a Drupal 6 site. These just come with Quickstart when you first install it. And excuse me. What we want to do now is we'll just create a new site. So let's do it. We're going to use a Drush, which is the Drupal command line shell utility. We're going to do Quickstart create, and we'll give it a new domain name, and we'll set that to debug.dev. So Quickstart, the Drush command is now going out. It's setting up the DNS records for us. So anytime we use debug.dev, it'll point us back to localhost. And this will be the web server that's running inside the virtual machine. Created a database for us. It went out and it used Drush make to download the Drupal code from ftp.drupal.org. Configured Apache for us. Then it started to run the Drupal 7 command line installer, which is an awesome new feature. Set up some other things, and then gave us the username and the password for the admin user. So if we go out to Firefox and we type in debug.dev, here we are. So here's our new website we just put together. Now let's debug that website. So to do that, we're going to open up NetBeans, and we'll create a new project in NetBeans. Creating a new project really just tells NetBeans where the files are that we're going to debug. So there's a project here already set up for example.dev, which is the example site that comes with Quickstart. So let's make a new project for our new website we just set up. So we'll go File, New Project, and then we'll choose a PHP project and a PHP application with existing sources. Click Next. We just got to find where that sources folder is. So this is in the Home Quickstart Websites folder, and debug.dev. Boom. This is the only real gotcha in this process is on this page, you need to set the project URL to debug.dev. So we want to take out this local host here. That'll make sure that we're using the right URLs. Okay, so NetBeans set up the project for us. It's now out scanning all the code in the project. So it's looking for to-dos and code comments and all this kind of amazing stuff. Now let's do some debugging. To do that, we have to set a breakpoint. And a breakpoint is really a line of code where NetBeans and XDebug are going to stop and wait for us to kind of look around, check out the variables, check out the call stack, see what's going on. So we're going to set, this is index.php, and we're going to set a breakpoint right in the very first line of index.php. So this is the very first thing that gets run. All right, so now we're ready. Let's do some debugging. So we click debug project, and boom, here we go. So what just happened? NetBeans started talking to Firefox and told Firefox to open up this URL. This URL points to debug.dev, which is our local Apache server. So that's the web server running inside of Quickstart's virtual machine. And this URL, this little bit here on the end, tells Apache to start a debug session with XDebug and gives it a name. So now Apache is waiting for that debug session to proceed, and Firefox is waiting for Apache to return the response of this request. So Firefox is going to sit here kind of waiting and spinning the whole time we're doing our debugging. If we go back to NetBeans, we can see that it stopped and it broke on our breakpoint. So here we are, and from here we can start to debug the code. There's a couple of things you can do. You can step into or you can step over lines. So I'll step over this define. There's not much to do here. Also, I'm not that interested in watching this file get included or required, so I'm going to step over that too. We can also step into functions. So if you want to see what's going on in the Drupal Bootstrap, click Step Into. This will open up that file for us. Here's the function definition, Drupal Bootstrap, and we can actually go through line by line and see what's going on in all of these functions. Now this is interesting because while we're in here, we can look at all the variables that are local to this function or in scope of this function. We can also see what the call stack is. So we were on main on line 21, and that called this Drupal Bootstrap function. And here we are. So this is debugging. If at any point we're kind of tired of working in this function, we can step up the call stack by clicking Step Out. And then that'll take us right back out here. If you want to see everything that's happening in Drupal as it does this page load, by all means, start digging in. If at any point you're done debugging and you just want the request to finish, click Continue. That'll complete the request and leave the debug session open. And this is interesting because usually when I'm debugging something, like I don't want to debug all of Drupal, so I just want to debug something specific, and I can do that. And I'll show you how to do that. So to do that, let's debug this user login form, and let's look at the function that checks the user's password. So that function is in the user module. So this is in core. And if we go down to user, the user module, we'll open up the user module file. And down in here is the user authenticate function. So this is important. When you set a breakpoint, don't set the breakpoint on the function declaration. The function declaration only gets run when the file is included or required. The function declaration doesn't get run when you actually call the function. If that doesn't make sense, just don't do it. What you want to do is set the breakpoint on the first line of the function. So because we're still have our debug session going, we can actually just continue to debug like this. So I'm gonna type in a user and a bad password into this form. Click login, and boom, we broke again. So now we're actually inside that function. Here's the call stack. So you can see these are all the functions that were called in the stack to get us to where we're at. Here are the variables. So here's what I typed into the form. And, you know, debugging we go. So we can step over lines. We can watch the user get loaded into this account variable. After that happens, if we hover on account, we can see the data that's in that variable. And really, here it is. I mean, the rest of this is really just kind of Drupal. Check it out if you're interested. Because the user check password function fails, the UID is returned as false. And if I click continue, the password form will get returned and the error gets returned. So there it is. That's how to debug Drupal using Quickstart. When you're done with your debugging session, you can click this red square, and that will close out the session, and away you go. So there it is. I hope you got something out of this screencast, and I hope you get something out of Drupal Quickstart if you're interested in it. Check out the project page up on Drupal.org, and feel free to ask questions. If you see something you're interested in, feel free to drop me a note. If you're using it for something cool, I'd love to hear about it. And thanks for everything you do for open source.